Hazbin Hotel Season 2 has come and gone, and the internet had totally normal things to say about it. I'm Maddie, a wannabe TikToker turned video essayist with a deep passion for art and storytelling, especially in the newly growing world of adult animation. Currently, my videos mostly focus on Hazbin Hotel. This is because Hazbin Hotel is extremely popular, both now and just in general, and because I like Hazbin Hotel. Genuinely. I listen to the songs in my car, I wear the t-shirts, and I have some thoughts and feelings on how the wider internet discusses this show. I've already made a video adjacent to that topic, so I won't get into it here. What I try to do is keep my commentary fair and honest around the show, good or bad. And Season 2 is out, and I have some commentary. This video is divided into 6 sections. General thoughts on the story, an analysis of the characters, breakdown of the songs, a look at the animation, all before we break down the finale. Then we'll talk about what I would like to see in the future of the show. Some of these sections are divided into smaller subsections to get into more detail on the topics, like those math problems you hate. Actually, we go into such detail that I was forced to break this video into 2, and it's not an even split. Consider this video to be the first third of everything on that list. Sorry, it's December, and I have extended family. Now, some of you might remember I had a little spat with Jeffrey last time I tried to discuss his singing demon show. So we've had to take some extra precautions this time around. The clips I show will be much fewer and far between. I'll only be using them when I think it's funny or to emphasize a point. Basically, no more talking over entire scenes, which I know is a little insane that I thought I could ever get away with that, but I thought since I wasn't monetizing the video, I could do more, but message received, Jeff, no fun allowed in this house. When I do show a clip, I'm going to shrink it down to about 65% of its original size, flip it, and put a moving background behind it. I know this is obnoxious to look at, it's Jeff's fault. And I would like to monetize this video, so no clips from any songs either. If I need to give you lyrics to a song, I'm gonna slam poetry it at you. Unless I accidentally slip into song, it's a definite possibility it happened last time. Basically, no song clips, and if I'm losing ya, I'll flash a little clip of angel dust as a bit of a jingle jingle, focus, focus, we're talking about the very specific implications of a certain screenshot, it's important. Otherwise, you're gonna have to get used to look at me in the eye. Unless you're drawing or something, I don't know. You watch Hazbin Hotel, you probably draw. Anyway, let's get going. Sit back, relax, and don't check the runtime. Yes, I am going to give you a brief summary of the story, but overall, this video assumes you've watched the entire season. Hazbin Hotel Season 2 picks up 1 month after the end of Season 1, with Cherri struggling to process the events of the finale, namely Serpentis's death, as she does not yet know that he was redeemed and is currently in heaven, fully believing he was killed by Adam. Meanwhile, the hotel is more popular than ever, with sinners lining up to check in. Unfortunately for Cherri, they're more interested in slaughtering angels than redeeming their souls. Seeing this, Vox, the TV-headed Alastor-obsessed leader of the prominent group of overlords, the V's, decides to take advantage. He decides to frame Cherri as an incompetent dictator uninterested in defending the lives of those in hell, seeking instead only to please heaven, so he can swoop in and take the power and praise for himself. That is the overall story of the 2nd season, and that takes us smoothly into the first major difference between the storytelling of Season 1 and Season 2. Season 2 has an overall story. While Season 1 does have an overarching goal of proving the hotel works, it actually runs on an episodic story structure until about halfway through when it suddenly switches to a serialized structure. This isn't unheard of. It's not that unusual for a more episodic show to slowly become more serialized as the show goes on. In fact, if you want your characters to have any sort of arcs or development, you could argue it's inevitable. It just usually doesn't happen halfway through the first season after only 4 episodes. Before episode 5, the first season of Hazbin Hotel is entirely episodic, with the episodes linked together by the overarching goal of proving redemption is possible, but with the episodes themselves largely having very contained storylines and conflicts. While these episodes occasionally reference the events of the past episodes, they do not rely on them for their own conflict. Episode 1 is about Charlie meeting up with Adam with a B-plot of Vaggi trying to make a commercial for the hotel. Episode 2 is about the V's trying to infiltrate the hotel using Serpentius, even though Serpentius was set up as the first threat by attacking Alastor. But Alastor is actually pretty irrelevant to this episode, not counting his fight with Vox. But then he sort of disappears for the rest of the episode, and it's about Serpentius trying to attack the hotel, but then he's caught immediately and joins the hotel, and the V's are barely mentioned for the rest of the season, and I will always have beef with Season 1, Episode 2 of Hazbin Hotel. Episode 3 is about the Overlords, how they influence the power structure of Hell, and what threat they could possibly pose to Heaven, with a B-plot of Charlie and Vaggi trying to set up redemption exercises for the hotel. Episode 4 is about Angel's demons, why he is the way he is, and why it's so difficult to change that, and how he can be helped despite it. There really is no B-plot for this episode, it's just about that. And you wonder why episode 4 is considered the strongest of season 1. Then come episode 5, and we very abruptly switch to a serialized story, with the ending of episode 5 feeding into the beginning of episode 6, the ending of episode 6 feeding into the beginning of episode 7, the ending of episode 7 feeding into the beginning of episode 8. You get it. This leads to season 1's notoriously janky story structure, which isn't helped by the reveal in episode 5 that all the past 4 episodes actually took place over the span of 5 months, and now we're really gonna get going. It's very jarring. In real life, it takes 2 hours. That was 3. 2 hours. 2. Season 2 avoids this by being serialized throughout, every episode building off the one that came before it. Even episode 2, arguably the most standalone episode, relies on being set up at the end of episode 1 and remains vital throughout the season. I personally have always preferred serialized storytelling, so that on its own is enough for me to enjoy season 2 more than I enjoyed season 1. But this can't solve every problem in Hazbin Hotel's approach to storytelling, namely, the pacing. I, at this point, have come to accept that the pacing of the show is something I will always have problems with. Once again, it rushes through plot lines that need more time to truly be effective. For me, a good example of this is the rift between Charlie and Vaggi and Husk leaving the hotel. Both of these conflicts are set up and resolved very quickly. Too quickly, in my opinion, to be truly effective. I would have loved if either of these plot lines took multiple episodes to be resolved. What if Husk left the hotel and went on a several episode bender, even starting to look like an overlord by the end of it? What if we see him win games and rise up until the very end of his bender when it all comes crashing down, and then at his lowest point he sees a poster for Angel Dust's performance and decides to go see it, and seeing Angel reminds him of what's really important. They have their conversation at the bar, Husk decides to go back to the hotel, only to find out Angel is gone. The scene where Husk rescues Angel is a clear parallel to Angel rescuing Husk from his downward spiral in episode 6, and imagine how much harder it would have hit if we had even more time to see Husk at his lowest. It also would have made Angel's leaving Husk sting all the more, since he could save Husk, but Husk couldn't save him. And I know that's what already happened. I just wish it happened more. And Charlie and Vaggi, the rift in their relationship. I was hoping for this. I started cheering at their fight in episode 5, and I was a little disappointed to see it resolved by the end of episode 6. Charlie and Vox are parallels of the season, and for the most part this works, but a big part of Vox's downfall is how he alienates the people around him. This is true for Charlie too. Her behavior alienates everyone close to her. Angel, Vaggi, Husk, Lucifer, it all contributes to her spiral. It's there. Just like Angel and Husk's arc, it's there. I just wish it was there more. What if Charlie and Vaggi's fight was truly a breakup? What if it lasted for episodes? We see even more of Charlie's struggle without her support system, and we see how badly Charlie needs her partner. We see her really realize what she's doing wrong and promise to overcome it. This could also help us see a little bit more of what Charlie and Vaggi love about each other as they miss each other, and get us, the audience, to see a taste of them falling in love again as they come back together. But we don't have time to see all that. We have time for a rift, a bit of drama, and a reconciliation. I know people are going to say this is Amazon's fault. They won't give them more episodes. And yes, I wish Amazon gave them more episodes, but they are not the only ones to blame. This is still a choice the writers are making. The reason I know that is the writers are capable of optimizing their stories for the time they have. Alastor's arc this season I thought was wonderfully paced. We see right away that his staff is broken, and he's still injured from his battle with Adam. We see him frustrated with the current state of his power and his position as host of the hotel. We see him being deliberately difficult, refusing to do tasks he once gleefully performed. And then when he's disrespected by Lucifer, he snaps, quits, and returns to Rosie. And we learn Rosie is the only reason he was there at all. She promised him power. He feels like he's lacking it, and now he's trapped in a deal he has no purpose for. So the midpoint of his arc is him allowing himself to get captured by the V's, seemingly putting him in an even lower place than he was at the start, making for an interesting twist to keep the audience engaged. We see him tied to that damn office chair, playing Vox like a fiddle. We know he's up to something, but we don't know what. Until the finale, when everything comes to a head. Vox wins, and by winning, Alastor is freed from his bonds and is now able to use his power as he sees fit. They did that in 8 episodes. They did that. They know how to do that, but they are still knowingly cramming more than can fit in these 8 episodes, and it frustrates me. If you were to sit me down and ask me which plotline to keep, Angel and Husk's or Charlie and Vaggi's, I would choose Charlie and Vaggi. Husker Dust is my favorite ship. Anyone familiar with my content knows that. I adore Angel and Husk, but Charlie and Vaggi's relationship is more central to the themes of the story. The Princess of Hell and a fallen angel. Finding each other and loving each other under impossible circumstances. That deserves priority in my mind. So if Husk and Angel's story had to be sacrificed in favor of Charlie and Vaggi's for the season, in my mind, it's a fair trade. I understand this was done because seasons 3 and 4 were not greenlit at the time season 2 was written. I realized they wanted to do as much as they could in the time they had. I understand this was done out of love for these characters, but it is a decision I will never agree with. I just can't agree with weakening your story for more rather than strengthening it for less. This is a fundamental difference in how I and the Hazbin writers approach storytelling, and I have accepted that. I have hope the pacing will get better in seasons 3 and 4 as they were greenlit at the same time, and the writers don't have to account for the possibility that they won't get renewed, at least in season 3. Vivian has been vocal about wanting a 5th season that, as of the time of this filming, has not yet been greenlit. So season 4 is probably being written with the possibility that it might not be, but given season 2's success, I have hopes for season 5 being greenlit, but I don't think we'll know until closer to the drop of season 3 or even after the drop of season 3. Now that I have refreshed you on the premise and given you my general thoughts on the story, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Examine the many, many, many pillars that hold up Hazbin Hotel. The characters. Hazbin Hotel's cast is large, and we all know that. So to try and have some level of organized chaos, I have divided them into 3 groups. The Hotel, the V's, and the Heaven. Anyone who does not fall into one of those groups, and St. Peter, will not be getting their own individual segment. I have nothing to say about St. Peter, fuck Peter. So let's get started with the titular group of Hazbin Hotel, the Hotel. The first time I tried to record this section, I set the camera in reverse, so it was recording the wall instead of me the whole time. And that is one more thing to blame Charlie for this season. Our princess was struggling this season. As said before, a major theme of the season was identity, and I definitely do think it was communicated in each character's arc, and we'll go over just how each character interacts with the themes of identity in their own individual segments. But around Charlie, I also noticed a theme of connection and leadership. There are 3 major arcs around leadership in the season: Charlie, Vox, and Sarah. Something I noticed during my many rewatches of the season is how each of these arcs interact differently with the themes of identity, connection, and leadership. Many people have already discussed how Charlie and Vox are parallels of the season, and they are, but what I haven't seen discussed is that Charlie also has significant parallels with Sarah. Sarah is everything Charlie wants to be. She is trusted, she is respected, and obeyed. But even she is not perfect. What makes a good leader is your ability to learn from your mistakes and from the voices of your people. Vox's arc demonstrates the perils of a leader who listens to the people, learns what to say to get them on his side, but always fails to fulfill his promises. Sarah's is that of a leader who refuses to accept new ideas, who uses the safety of her people as an excuse to act on her own worst fears. Charlie is a leader who does not believe in her own ability to lead, who is so obsessed with proving herself to her enemies that she forgets to lead her own people. Where all three of these characters fail as leaders is in the point, learn from their own people. And we'll go over just how Vox and Sarah fail at this in their own sections, but for now, we're here to roast Charlie. Charlie says point blank at multiple instances in the show that she needs redemption to be possible. She says this for the very first time in the opening number of the season. "'Cause redemption is possible, I really, really hope. 'Cause if it isn't, then my whole life's been a fucking joke, and my friend died for no reason, and I'm never gonna cope with watching him get fucking murdered right in front of me last month. There's the bar. Have a beer. I just know you're gonna love it here." It was in my top 5. She needs redemption to be possible, but not for her people, for herself. At no point does Charlie put the needs of her people first in her mind. And that's not to say she doesn't care. She does. Redemption is a genuine thing she believes in. Where it gets twisted is when it gets mixed with her own self-image. Redemption, at the end of the day, has nothing to do with Charlie. Charlie was born in hell. There is no sin for her to redeem. Redemption is not something she can ever strive for. It is instead, at least in season 2, a product. And that is what makes her exactly like Vox. Charlie may believe in redemption, and she may care for the sinners in a way that Vox is incapable of, but at least in the events of the season, that doesn't matter. They are both using the public to prove their own self-image. Or not exactly on Charlie's part. For Charlie, it's not so much how she views herself. She's made it very clear that being the princess of hell doesn't matter that much to her, but what does matter is Lilith. Especially since, at least in the main series, I don't care about any pre-pilot live streams, at least in the finished show on my TV screen. Charlie has never mentioned any siblings, any childhood friends, any aunts, uncles, cousins, even a nanny. The only figure she consistently brings up from her past is her mother. And her mother abandoned her. We don't know why. She doesn't know why. We only know that she blames herself, and she thinks if she can prove herself to be a worthy queen, a worthy daughter of Lilith, maybe she'll come home. These are the stakes in Charlie's eyes. The approval of the most important person in her life and the meaning of her entire existence hinges on her being right, and it is so much more frustrating for her because she is right. Redemption is possible. An angel, and not just any angel, one of the highest ranking angels in heaven, came down to tell her the work she is doing is worthwhile. Everything she needs to prove herself a worthy daughter to her mother is within her grasp, and no one believes her. Also, the angel coming down and telling her she has the favor of heaven and must save everyone around her, and then zipping off with no witnesses or proof this interaction ever happened, feels like a joke about every religious prophet ever, where their story begins with, "They talked to God." No one believed them, because that's insane. But they did! So of course she is taking everything Vox says so personally. Of course she can't resist talking back to him, especially when he is taking the words of her mother that she knew and loved and he never knew, and claiming he understands them better. She genuinely cannot resist trying to set the record straight, considering what's at stake and the fact that she's fucking Right! Vox is constantly getting on Cherri for having no proof redemption is possible, and no, the words of angels don't count, but he doesn't have any proof what he's promising is possible either. How will they breach heaven? He brushes it off as schematics when Val asks for the specifics. No, seriously, Vox, how are you gonna get up there? Are you just gonna shove yourself into the barrel of that nuke and launch yourself to heaven like a circus clown? It's more of a plan than you've been pitching. And this is where Cherri and Vox are different. The reason Vox is so much better at winning the favor of the public initially is he actually listens to what they're saying. The public is angry with heaven, and rightfully so, and sure, Vox might not have all the hows and whys, but he is telling them they're right to be angry, and he's offering them a way to get back at those who have wronged them. While Cherri is implying their anger is wrong. And Vox is a sinner just like them, while Cherri has never even known what it's like to be human, to be alive. Who do you think they're gonna listen to? I don't think Cherri actually believes their anger is wrong. She just believes that more violence will not help the situation between heaven and hell, and she is right. But she's so fixated on correcting the public's perception about her goal rather than working towards her goal that she completely forgets what's important. Her friends, her family, her relationship, her cause, she hurts them all in her effort to outshine the V's. Cherri has always displayed this flaw, the most egregious of which being episode 4 of season 1. Where she barges into Angel's work unannounced and very uninvited to try and get him some time off for the hotel, which angers Valentino, who then takes his anger out on Angel. Here, Cherri has the self-awareness to understand that she was wrong and apologize, but not in this season. And it's not because her character regressed, it's because all of this is just too personal for her. As insufferable as she could be to watch at times, I loved that we got to see this flaw brought to its extreme in season 2. I've always related to Cherri, and especially this part of her. It hurts to see your words twisted to mean things you would never say, and your instinct is to keep talking to try and fix it, and that always makes it worse. This is ultimately something you can only learn in a trial by fire. Everybody thinks that they can make people understand if they just explain. Everybody underestimates the true viciousness of people who only want you to fail. Cherri needed to learn this lesson. In the end, what finally gets Cherri back on track is Vaggi snapping and telling her that she is hurting the hotel. Something that she takes poorly at first, but eventually accepts when she sees just how dire the situation between the V's and the hotel really is. At a certain point, it doesn't matter what the V's are saying, it matters what she can do to help the people she's claiming to care about. As Auntie Rosie told us, actions speak louder than words, and her actions at Vox's Overlord banquet prove to the people of hell that she actually does care about them and their well-being, and remind her of what's truly important. Not Vox, not Lilith, but the work she is doing and the people she is doing it for. What Cherri learned this season is that she has to focus on doing the work rather than what others will think or say. If she believes in it, then she has to do it. And when people see what she's able to achieve, they will believe in her as well. It is one massive step towards becoming the queen she wants to be. At least it was before Lilith called her back. I'm sure that won't have any complex impact on her character development at all. I wonder how many times my shirt has changed in this video. Other YouTubers will put the clothes they wore yesterday back on before they film, so it looks like everything was filmed in one day, but not here. Here we face reality. Look at the sunflower. It's Friday now. If a primary theme of the season is identity, then Vaggi's character may be the most literal example of it, and I think this is fitting, as Vaggi is the character who essentially has to start from scratch in regards to her own identity. Every other character in the season has at least an idea of who they want to be. Even if they haven't reached it, even if it's not the one they should be chasing, they at least have a goal. The same cannot be said for Vaggi. This isn't a criticism. It's actually one of the most interesting aspects of Vaggi's character for me. You may have guessed it by now, but I love story arcs around identity and characters finding out who they are, and I especially love it with characters who were never given that chance. Not just didn't think about it, but were never allowed to realize who they really were, and in season 2, Who is this truer for in the cast than Vaggi? Whatever identity Vaggi had was invented for her by Adam, and it's for this reason that we learn in season 2 she's trying to change her name. When asked why, she says it's because Adam gave her her name, and it's demeaning, which I can't disagree with. Adam did say that he named her after the best thing ever, and then pronounced her name Vaggi. So, I get it. Throughout the season, Vaggi tries out multiple names, but she's unhappy with all of them. And as the season goes on, the plot point is mentioned less and less, but is implied to always be something happening in the background. Then, in the final episode of the season, we get our answer. Vaggi has settled on the name Vaggi, without the E. Many people in my comment section have been complaining about this, with people calling it a cop-out or even just saying it's a downright stupid plotline. Why would you focus so much time on Vaggi changing her name only for her to never change her name, just drop one letter? But I think this misunderstands the point of Vaggi's journey with identity. For her, it was never about building a new identity. It was about reclaiming the one that was forced on her. If you truly watch Vaggi and how she behaves, you'll notice she doesn't hate being an exorcist. Okay, that's a little misleading. She hates being an exorcist. She hates being forced to indiscriminately slaughter people against her will, which, same. But she doesn't hate what goes into being an exorcist. So much of Vaggi's character in the show is taking bits and pieces of herself that she likes or is good at and finding a way to use them in ways that she can be proud of. This has been true since the very start of the show. The first time we explicitly see it is during the song Whatever It Takes, which, if you don't know my lore, is the Hazbin song that pushed my mother down the stairs, but I digress. In this song, we see her lament about how she met Charlie, how at the time she felt like a stranger in a totally new land, and when this song was first released, we didn't yet have the context that she was a fallen angel, but once we did, we realized just how literal this lyric and the lyrics that came after it were. When I saw your face, you made me feel like a stranger in a brand new place, and it felt so good to be understood, but there's so much that I wished I could say. How did I get that wrong? I'm literally reading the lyrics off the page. So I'll be your armor. Do whatever it takes. I'll make the mistakes. I'll spend my life being your partner. Charlie was the first one to ever see her as an individual outside of being an exorcist. She was Vaggi's initial inspiration to start using these pieces of herself for something, or in this case, someone she loved. She was no longer an exorcist. She was Charlie's armor and partner. In season 2, we mostly see this continue, but with the beginnings of it branching out farther than just being Charlie's partner. The first place we see this is within the first 5 minutes of the show, where she's gleefully taking down new guests' names and says, "This is like being in the army." She enjoys tedious tasks like writing down people's names and giving them keys because it reminds her of being in the army, reminds her of doing something she is good at, but applied to a cause she is proud of. This is why her taking over as host of the hotel is such a good step for her character. She is seeing how she can use her skills, and all of her skills, not just violence, for causes outside of Charlie. And yes, it is still for the hotel, which is inherently tied to Charlie, but Vaggi cares about the hotel on her own at this point. If she didn't, she wouldn't have continued to work so efficiently after she and Charlie weren't speaking, and she certainly wouldn't have called Charlie out at the end of episode 5. And speaking of calling Charlie out, this is another example of her character's growth, as it demonstrates her growing independence outside of Charlie. She now has enough confidence in herself and enough of her own personal investment in the hotel to stand up to Charlie, which she never would have done in season 1, even when she was clearly uncomfortable. Season 1 Vaggi never stood her ground against Charlie. Season 2 Vaggi does. The easy number is the final display of the season for just how far Vaggi has come. And I've seen some people complain about the suddenness of the song, and yes, it definitely does sucker punches you. This song made my nose bleed from its suddenness and no other reason. But the suddenness is part of the song's place in the story. Charlie is spiraling, and instead of doing what season 1 Vaggi would have done, which is coddling her with shushes and affirmations, season 2 Vaggi steps in with a sharp, "Shut up, you know that I love you." Season 1 Vaggi would have never spoken to Charlie this way. She was too terrified of Charlie's rejection and her own past to have this level of confidence. Season 2 Vaggi has no secrets, has reclaimed her identity, and is proud of who she is. Proud enough to tell the Princess of Hell that it's time to shut up. And that is why Vaggi dropped the E. Instead of changing her name, she reclaims it. Just as she reclaimed her wings. It is the perfect symbolic representation of Vaggi's character arc so far. She still uses the skills she learned as an angel, but now she decides how she wants to use them. She decides who she wants to be. By dropping the E off her name, she is taking it back on her own terms, and I love this, and I find it especially meaningful with a lesbian character. So much of queer history and culture is taking back the horrible things we have been called on our own terms, and I know queer characters are a dime a dozen in Hazbin and Helva, but if anything, that makes this feel all the more deliberate. If this is who I am to you, so be it. But I get to decide what it means. My one wish for Vaggi is we continue to see independent development for her in the coming season. As much as she has developed, that development still relies on Charlie or causes tied to Charlie. It makes enough sense. Charlie is the protagonist as well as Vaggi's partner. She's going to be involved in the development of every character, but especially so with Vaggi. Still, the other characters do have connections or motivations outside of the hotel, and so far, Vaggi does not. She did start from scratch in a way none of the other characters did, but it feels like we've solidified who Vaggi is by the end of Season 2. In the coming seasons, I think it's time for Vaggi to spread her wings. Oh, come on, you're watching a Hazbin Hotel video. You can tell me there's no place in your heart for corny sentiment, but I won't believe you. When compared to Charlie or Vox, the way Alastor carries his power is interesting. Alastor doesn't need the validation of others around him the way they do. He enjoys being feared, of course, but to him, his power has never been something that needed to be proven. It's a fact. Believe him or don't, it's no less true, and be unto you the consequences of doubting the radio demon. And why not? After all, it is a fact. We learned last season that Alastor, despite being the strong, feared demon he is, actually has his soul owned by someone else. Theories flew about who might hold his leash and what the conditions of the deal might be, and in Season 2, we finally got answers to both. Alastor made his deal while still alive to ensure he would be the strongest sinner in hell, and who did he make that deal with? Lucifer? Lilith? Nope. Rosie. The kind cannibal overlord from Season 1 has the kind of power to reach into the human world and make someone else the most powerful sinner in hell. Honestly, in the theories of who might own Alastor's soul, Rosie was always one of the most common, I'd say just after Lilith. How would Alastor know that Rosie and her people were strong enough to fend off the angels? And why does he seem so fond of her? They can't just be friends. Alastor doesn't have friends, no matter what the Alastor stands tell you. And they sat next to each other at the Overlord meeting and overall seemed to have some sort of connection. So for that connection to be Rosie owns his soul, made a lot of sense. Honestly, I can't tell you who I thought owned Alastor's soul before we learned it was Rosie in the show, because I don't remember. Because I already knew. I was a victim of the November 2024 leaks. I opened my phone unsuspecting only to be punched in the face with the fact that Rosie owns Alastor's soul. I lived with that for a year against my will, and I'm still mad about it. I've seen people immediately declare her a hellborn because there's no way a sinner could have that kind of power, but maybe they can. We don't know exactly what made Rosie so powerful. She could have very easily been a sinner, or maybe started as one, because I concede that it wouldn't make much sense for a sinner to make another sinner the most powerful sinner in hell. But maybe she started as a human soul and became something else. How? Don't know. Guess we'll have to see. Season 2 answered us the question of who owns Alastor's soul. It's Rosie, and now we have a ton of questions about what the fuck is going on with Rosie. Anyway, this little snippet of Alastor's backstory and how he managed to build influence in life was really cool to see, but I do wish we delved a little farther into it. Especially how Alastor, someone we can now see is non-white, and if you look into it, specifically mixed-race Creole, which is why he can speak French, lived in 1920s Louisiana. There are some references to it, with Rosie saying how he overcame so much to get his own radio show while surrounded by white producers, and having a white man spill wine on his sleeve at a party. And, okay, I can smell the comments from people saying I shouldn't even bother with this critique because Vivzy Pop only made Alastor Creole because she got in trouble for using voodoo symbols in the pilot, and then she removed the voodoo symbols but kept Alastor Creole. And look, maybe it wasn't the original direction of his character, but it is now, and I am allowed to want more. It so deeply annoys me when I see criticism for this part of Alastor's character, especially coming from Black or Creole fans, only be met with people saying, well, Vivzy Pop doesn't care, he's not really Black or Creole. Not only do I not believe she doesn't care, that's just a terrible take. This is all part of Alastor now, and people, especially people from these cultures, are allowed to talk about it. And responding to it with only comments of hate towards Vivian Medrano, rather than any input or insight on what you have learned from the conversation, does not make you look good. It is dismissive of the criticism and shows that you don't actually care about this discussion. You just want to display your deep parasocial hatred for a woman you don't know. The racial tensions in 1920s to 1930s New Orleans were incredibly high, and imagining the story of a Black man managing to climb the ranks despite this, and maybe even because he uses a medium that does not show his face, is a fascinating story. Given how the show surrounds Alastor with white producers and shows him being disrespected by a white man at a party, tells me that they are aware of this and want to hint at it. But I would have liked them to show it more explicitly. There is time. Maybe in season 3 we will see more of this, but at least for now, I feel let down by this part of Alastor's character, and I wanted to mention it before moving on. Let's go back to the top. Alastor is the most powerful sinner in hell. It is an undisputed fact, and he carries himself with the knowledge that nothing can challenge it. Until something challenges it. Being the most powerful sinner in hell did not mean what Alastor believed it meant, what Rosie let him believe it meant, and for the first time since he entered hell, Alastor's idea of himself is challenged. This is why he no longer acts as the smiling, charismatic host of the hotel, now choosing instead to blend into the background and refuse to help when asked. And yes, he brags about how he enjoys being difficult, but the real reason is he is hurt, he is broken, and he hates it. When Vox comes into the hotel in season 2, Alastor just runs away. In the first season, Alastor would have gone up to him and personally offered him a tour of the hotel, just like he did with Lucifer. But now, with his wounds and his broken staff, he is reminded of just how much he and Vox are alike. For Charlie, Vox is a cautionary tale, a warning for what she could become. For Alastor, Vox is everything he already is. What Alastor hates most about Vox is his reliance on others for power, a hilariously hypocritical viewpoint, especially given that Alastor literally pre-ordered his powers before he'd even breathed his last breath. Vox is a manifestation of everything Alastor hates about himself, until he realizes how he can use him. While some people were annoyed by Alastor's incapacitation, I thought it was a brilliant direction to take his character in. I heard people say that Alastor is an example of why show don't tell is so important. We are told Alastor is this big, scary demon, but the one time he's meant to be in a big, scary fight against Adam, he gets his ass kicked. And now we, as the audience, feel robbed of the character we were promised. He's a fraud. Alastor is a fraud! But I actually think this might be the entire point. If you felt cheated out of the radio demon, out of the big, terrifying shadow over hell, so did Alastor. That was his idea of himself, and he'd never had it challenged before, and so we and Alastor are asking the same question. Where is the radio demon? And this is why tying him to that stupid rolling chair was such a good idea. Make him helpless. Strip him of his dignity. Make us see him lower than we thought possible. And then remind us what makes him actually dangerous. The big tentacles and minions are nice, but they don't mean much on their own. Vox has big tentacles and minions, and he's still wound up as an iPad. What makes Alastor so dangerous is not the eldritch aesthetic. It's the smile. Alastor managed to end 3 deals in one, not out of raw power, but wordplay. Alastor's danger is in the inability to read what he is really thinking or planning while he reads you like a book. It is in his charming outward exterior that you cannot help but invite in, while he remains completely unpredictable in how he feels about you. Alastor's danger is Alastor, not the deals, not the powers, not the radio demon. Alastor. Alastor, who has broken every chain that has held him back, who is free, who is building himself back up to the top using no one's power but his own, unchained and uncontrolled. But I'm sure it's fine. The inside of my ear itches so bad, I hate winter. Everyone who doesn't have eczema inside of their ear canal, I want you to take a moment and thank the universe for that, because you don't know how lucky you are. Hazbin Hotel Season 2. Angel's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad time. If he's not looking at deflated deep-sea specimens, he's being used by his best friend to make a point, being humiliated on live TV, having to save his other best friend from being hit by a train with an angelic spear tied to the front of it, being pimped out by Valentino, which then leads into him getting beaten and electrocuted by Vox. Sounds like hell! Oh, and also he was hypnotized the entire time. And we'll get to that. I never expected Season 2 to be that focused on Angel, and it wasn't, but when it was unkind to him. Despite how little overall screen time he gets this season, how Angel interacts with the themes of the season, especially the main theme of identity, is very interesting. Where Cherri, Alastor, and Vaggi all have arcs focusing on coming into their own identities, Angel's is about the identities he is trapped in by those around him. Last season, we saw how Angel was forced to embrace a hypersexualized addict persona by Valentino. This season, we see Angel forced to become an example of redemption by Cherri and even by Husk. Angel appears in almost every episode of Season 2, but is only a focal point in Episode 3. I almost called that one Scream Rain, that one's Behind Closed Doors, but he's only a focal point in Episode 3, Speedrun to Redemption, and nope, that's the name of the song in that episode, What's Wrong With Me? But is only the focal point in episodes 3, Behind Closed Doors, and 6, Scream Rain. And the differences between his roles in these episodes are fascinating. Angel does not make a single decision for himself in episode 3. Instead, he is pushed into deeply uncomfortable scenarios by the people he cares about. He tries to say no to Charlie's redemption test multiple times, but finally accepts when Husk backs her up. And from this point on in the episode, Angel loses all control of his actions. And yes, Husk does apologize for this, and we'll talk about that in his section. For now, I want to talk about the relationship between Charlie and Angel. Charlie's Angels. I've always thought that was cute. Charlie cares about Angel and is very protective of him, absolutely. The problem is it always comes second to what she wants from Angel. A redeemed sinner, a success story, Charlie always thinks about that before what's best for Angel, and in episode 3 of season 2, we finally see the consequences of this. Angel does everything Charlie asks of him this episode, even though he clearly doesn't want to, and his fuse gets shorter and shorter as the episode goes on. He gets visibly more and more annoyed during the speedrun to redemption number as Charlie tries to transform him into Serpentious, and when she finally puts on a strange western scene so he can save Husk and be redeemed, he attempts to back out, but he is forced back into the situation when Charlie recklessly puts Husk in danger, and Angel and Husk both are barely saved by Vaggi. And even after all that, Charlie still presses him to reveal his greatest sins in front of everybody, and when he refuses, Vox steps in and reveals it all against his will. Cherri does attempt to stand up for Angel in front of Vox, but by then it's too little too late, and Angel refuses all of Cherri's apologies, and after that, that's it. Cherri and Angel have a massive hole torn in their relationship, and it is not mended by the end of the season. After episode 3, they never interact again. But I don't think this is a bad thing. Cherri and Angel have always had this rift in their relationship, and ending season 2 with Angel returning to the V's because of this, as well as his contract with Valentino, was always something I suspected would happen long before season 2 actually dropped. Angel returns to the V's and later comes back and escapes them on his own terms. Meanwhile, Cherri realizes just how badly the hotel needs Angel and all the ways she's failed him. It's always been a clear direction for their stories, and that is why I do not like the hypnosis twist. I do not think this twist was necessary. Not because it's overly cruel to Angel or turns him into a narrative punching bag, whatever that means. It just wasn't necessary. It's not a bad idea, let me be clear. Angel was suggested as a spy by Vox all the way back in season 1 because he is the only member of the cast with a direct connection to the V's through Valentino, and we've established that Vox can hypnotize people. All the pieces are there, but it just wasn't necessary. If what you wanted was for Angel to leave the hotel, he did not need to be hypnotized to make that decision. He ultimately leaves because he feels like he has no real control, no choices, no freedom, and yeah, that's just true. We see this in the first season. Angel is pulled away from the hotel by Val's phone calls, and when he is involved in the hotel, Cherri disrespects him in front of everyone, revealing that she doesn't even see him as the hotel's first real guest, and she never apologizes for saying this. Then in season 2, she continues to act this way towards him, trying to turn him into Sir Pentious rather than focusing on him and what he would need to be redeemed. She humiliates him in front of the V's twice, and in season 2, episode 6, he sits with Husk at the bar and admits he will never be redeemed. For him to just decide to walk away from the hotel makes perfect sense without the hypnosis. And the hypnosis twist just wasn't set up well. I'm sorry, it just wasn't. I never felt that Vox was ahead of Cherri in any surprising way. I just figured he was better at swaying the public than she was. The only time he ever feels ahead of her in any way that might surprise me is when he cuts the train brakes in episode 3, and I don't think Angel even told him about the train, he was just physically there, and when he was prepared to face Lucifer in episode 5. Almost all of the hints towards this twist are in episode 5. Angel mentions he has a headache. Vox is fully prepared for Lucifer, and Vox calls Lucifer Lou. And that's it. And people are gonna say, well, they didn't have enough episodes. And again, I don't think that's an excuse, and in this case, yes, they did. 1 or 2 more lines, have Vox say something in his reports that was only said between Cherri and Angel, and have someone say, how does he even know that? Have Husk respond to the blobfish with, yeah, you've shown me this before, to show that he's having gaps in his memory. And the fact that the rest of the cast figures out that Angel is hypnotized on their own, with no on-screen deduction, they react to it, and then Vaggi says, well, we'll break him out of his mind control with no explanation, tells me that they are aware that this plot point is weak, but they wanted the gut punch twist anyway. And I'll admit, I'm giving this plot point so much grief because I just don't like hypnosis as a trope. Hypnosis or any sort of mind control. I like it when characters have control over their own actions, especially bad actions. I feel like hypnosis or mind control is too much of a cop-out. When Angel gets on TV and calls the hotel a joke, I would have liked it if he meant it. And you know what? Maybe he did. Look, I know I just spent a lot of time complaining, but ultimately, the choice for Angel to go back to the V's was his own. Regardless of how unnecessary I think the hypnosis twist was for him to make this choice, it didn't take the choice away. In fact, Husk and Cherri going on a big rescue mission to save Angel, only for Angel to reject it, reassured me. It's very cool to see Husk and Cherri, especially Husk, fight for Angel against Valentino, but for this to be the way he gets away from Valentino would have been a terrible ending for his story. Angel says repeatedly in songs and dialogue that he got himself into the situation with Valentino. He signed the contract. He can only blame himself. And if he got himself into the situation, then the best way for his arc to end is for him to get himself out. It would be a culmination of all the character development he has gone through, and yes, while he can lean on his friends for support, they can't be the ones to save him. It has to be him. And the ending of Angel's arc this season showed me the story understands that. And if it understands that, then I can trust it understands everything else, including how Charlie has been treating him at the hotel. But there is one moment where Angel does have control this season, and that is during the Losing Streak segment. And before we talk about the segment itself, I want to point out that he sings this song with his darker eye covered. I believe that there is significant symbolism behind which of Angel's eyes is more visible to the audience in any given scene, with his white eye representing his true unmasked self and his darker eye representing his false masked self. You can see in the scenes where he's more confident, his white eye is often the only one visible, like at the end of Loser Baby or when he's standing up to Valentino in the club. While the scenes where he's spiraling show his black eye, like when he's screaming at Husk in episode 4 or dancing with Val at the very end of Poison. I've had people tell me there's no way this is intentional, and I'm just looking too far into it. But you need to remember, in animation, nothing is an accident. Angel doesn't have one eye or the other visible by pure chance. It was a decision on the part of the artists and directors. So for Losing Streak to cover his darker eye and have him sing with only his white eye visible is not an accident. If you see this as symbolic of him singing as his truest self, as I do, then when you pay attention to what he's saying, it's heartbreaking. Most people interpret Losing Streak as Angel singing about Husk's feelings for him, but I actually prefer it if it's Angel singing about his own feelings for Husk. Dead inside, 'cause you know it's all pretend. No, we're not going to do that. Dead inside, 'cause you know it's all pretend. Close your eyes, 'cause you're going off the deep end again. Look me in the eye and tell me which of these characters do those lyrics fit better, Husk or Angel? If you read the song from Angel's point of view, then Husk becomes the royal flush, the hand that Angel wants more than anything but is never quite lucky enough to get. He doesn't have the best record for romance in hell, especially when we consider his relationship with Valentino and the possibility that, at some point, it might have been genuinely romantic, at least on Angel's side. The lyric "final ace for a pretty face" while holding up an ace of hearts is especially devastating if you think about it being symbolic of him signing his soul to Valentino. And I believe the final ace could very well be referring to Valentino, especially the ace of hearts considering that Valentino is covered in red hearts. The point is, the one time Angel is truly in control at the center of a scene, he sings about how he feels lost, how he's on a losing streak and wants to believe it could get better, but the odds are bleak. This song could just as easily be read from Husk's point of view, and that's kind of why I like it. It's the perfect balance of both Angel and Husk and where they are in their arcs and why they might be scared to fall for each other, or admit they're falling for each other. But they can't quite help themselves from making that gamble. And speaking of gamblers, the man who sold his soul has found his heart. With one caveat. And it's not the one you're thinking. In season 2, Husk learns to care. Care about his friends, care about the hotel, care about Angel. Everyone. But himself. He says it plainly to Angel in episode 6. He is not worth saving. Just in case allowing himself to get tied to railroad tracks and then get angry at Angel for saving him from the railroad tracks because Angel could have gotten hurt didn't make it clear enough. But because I like talking about how depressed this cat is, I want to examine how it's present in every part of his character, even in how he fights. Husk never fights for himself. When he's summoned to fight by Alastor, or more accurately, Pokemon tossed into a fight by Niffty, He never fights back. Every move he makes is either defensive or evasive. The most offensive his fighting ever gets here is when he blasts Velvet with flowers from his hat. And it must not have been very effective because she still has him pinned in the next wide shot. I have not seen anyone else mention that. It bothers me unreasonably. Also, his magician powers are really cool. Let's say it. Let's get it out of the way. Pinning the magician against the witch was a really cool idea. It looked awesome. We all know Husk still hates himself. The only time he does fight back with any sort of force is when he's rescuing Angel from Valentino. And this is because, unlike Alastor, Husk actually likes Angel. But even in this fight, it takes him a minute to actually join in. Before this, he is more focused on making sure Angel doesn't get hurt, positioning himself behind Cherri and grabbing the bag with Angel in it before it can hit any of the walls. But he does join in when he realizes Cherri can't take both Valentino and Kitty on her own. And then Angel gets immediately slammed into the wall behind Cherri. Good job, Husk, you are a terrible friend. Put the guns down, I know, a bit too far. Husk is actually a very good friend, if an imperfect one. And it's not because of the wall. In Angel's section, I talked about how Husk, alongside Charlie, forced Angel into Charlie's Speed Run to Redemption challenge on live television. And he did. But later, when he apologized, Angel actually accepted Husk's apology where he refused Charlie's. So why is that? Because he's in love with. Because Charlie's motivations for forcing Angel into this situation were selfish. I won't go as far as saying she didn't care about Angel's redemption in that scene. She does care for Angel, but she cared about proving her hotel even more. Husk pushed Angel into the situation because he truly thought it would help Angel. He was only thinking about Angel, not himself, not the hotel, just Angel. And Angel knows that, so it was much easier for him to forgive Husk than it was Charlie, who, again, he still hasn't forgiven by the end of the season. And okay, this is as smooth of a transition as we're going to get. Let's talk about Husker Dust. The ship between Angel and Husk has always been one of the favorites of the fandom, and the cast and crew know it. I always expected we'd get some Husker Dust teases in the second season, but nothing too extreme. Instead, what we got, almost every interaction they have can be interpreted as flirting. Husk puts on a dress and plays the role of damsel for Angel to save. Husk goes and sings about how the only love he needs is in a bottle, but then puts down the bottle once Angel was pretty at him, goes and fights a murderous moth for Angel's honor, only for Angel to decide he has no honor, and leave Husk while he tenderly grips his hand like a rainy gazebo scene in Bridgerton. Forget teasing, this is raw dogging. I'm getting Husker Dust raw dogged right now, and I love that. I'm sure at this point in the video I have cut to a time lapse of myself drawing Husker Dust. I need you to understand I love Husker Dust. I have built my platform off the blown out backs of Husker Dust, but it's not what I wanted from this season. Why did I decide to talk about Husker Dust here in Husk's section instead of back in Angel's section? I mentioned that Angel and Husk have feelings for each other in Angel's section, but I didn't use the word Husker Dust. That's because outside of Husker Dust, there isn't much to say about Husk. We know he used to be an overlord, we know he sold his soul to Alastor, but we don't know the hows and whys of that. While I was writing Husk's section and thinking of things to analyze, I realized almost everything has to do with his relationship with Angel, and that isn't what I wanted for Husk this season. What I wanted was more independent development from Husk. I wanted more scenes of him alone, with his own wants and motivations, and it's not like we didn't get any of it. The entire first half of Love in a Bottle is all about Husk in his element. It's the only time Husk ever acts in his own interest, which ironically leads back to self-destruction. But we see that he can be confident, charismatic, and even surprisingly flirty. Unless you're me and was not surprised at all because you saw The Light months ago and know Husk is a sex god. But Love in a Bottle is a 2-minute song total, and I wanted more. I wanted more of his backstory. I wanted more of his motivations. I wanted more of Husk. Just Husk. But despite that, I can't say I'm disappointed with what we got in Season 2. And it's not just because I like Husker Dust, which I do. I really like Husker Dust. But it's because I think I can see what they're doing. They're establishing Husk improving in some ways, like putting down the bottle and returning to the hotel, which he never would have done in season 1. But he only did it because of Angel, and now Angel is gone. All of Husk's improvements rely on the presence of other people, namely Angel, but that isn't a flaw of his writing. It's part of his arc. Husk needs people he cares about, and he didn't have them at the start of the story. So season 1 shows us Husk finding them, season 2 shows us Husk loving them and then losing them, so season 3 can show us Husk learning from them. It was vital for Angel and Husk to be physically split at the end of season 2, not just for Angel, but for Husk too. He needs to learn how to improve on his own. He can't anchor all of his success onto other people, especially a potential partner. Just like with Angel, people can be there for support. But you have to be the one choosing to be better. So I will take your rain check, Hazbin. I will be patient. What I really want by the end of next season is for Husk to check into the hotel, ideally before Angel comes back. But we'll see. I'll wait. And I'll see. Anyway, Angel fell first, Husk fell harder, except Husk didn't fall. Husk impacted from orbit and is 6 miles deep in a crater with no hope of escape. Niffty! 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 That's her. That's her scuttling around up there somewhere. I've trapped her. She's mine now. Look, does Niffty really have an arc this season? No. Do I expect Niffty to ever really have an arc in any season? Not really. Do I still absolutely adore Niffty? Absolutely. I could not imagine Hazbin Hotel without Niffty. To me, she represents the unapologetic absurdity that makes me love Hazbin so much. Her song is one of my favorite moments of the season. It is everything I love about Niffty and everything I love about Hazbin rolled into one convenient minute. It's loud and absurd and violently itself, and it's so much fun. The sudden switch to cute animation and the line "Hotel of My Dreams" immediately after an entire verse dedicated to cleaning bodily fluids off rugs. That's Hazbin right there. The inexplicable switch to Japanese. I know it's because Kimiko Glenn is Niffty's voice actress and she's Japanese, but in universe there is no reason for this to be happening, and she's only complimenting the hotel in Japanese, so no one can understand what she's saying until she describes sinners and uses the words trash and asshole, and those are the only words said in English. It might be the best joke of the season. She steals the show of every scene she's in, be it summoning her bug army or stabbing Valentino to death. She is a joy whenever she is on my screen. When I was 10, I had a spider crawl inside my shirt in the middle of class, and I could feel it scuttling around over my skin, and it bit me several times, and it was precisely like whatever Valentino is experiencing here. Difference is, he deserved it. If there is anything to say about her character this season, I am glad we got to see a little bit more of her personality outside of bugs and murder. I love Charlie bringing her to hold motivational signs during Katie Killjoy's interview. I love that she actually did it, and she seemed to take her job so seriously. I love her interactions with Baxter. I love her calling him a smart boy. I love her pinching out the flame on his little glow lamp antenna thing. I'm sure there's a word for whatever this is. I don't know it. I love her actually caring about Alastor. I love her going and grabbing Husk and just throwing him at the nearest threat. I love Niffty. As much as I love Niffty as she is, and don't really need her to ever get her own arc, I wouldn't be upset if she did. We know that she's an overlord now, so there could be some potential for arcs in there, and there is, of course, her backstory and why she is the way she is. I have my own headcanons. I think she is a lobotomized housewife who killed her husband, and the reason she has one eye is because how they perform lobotomies is they take a big long needle and stick it in your eye, and then boop boop, and then your personality's gone. Sorry. But she doesn't need a dark backstory for me to love her as part of the hotel. I will always love her as part of the hotel. I love all the personality and dynamics she brings, and I love how all the cast seems to love her as well. I loved in season 1 how there was a little background gag of Niffty getting into danger and someone would go and pull her out of it. It was one of my favorite parts of the season. I just love Niffty. And this section was my little breather to say I love a lot, because I do. I love Niffty a lot. However, we do still have more to cover. We are almost through the hotel, but we do have some new guests that need introduction. What does Cherri do this season? No, seriously, outside of joining the hotel and pining for Serpentius, what does Cherri actually contribute? How does she interact with the themes of the show, with the season, with identity? What does she do? While watching the show, it feels like she's constantly there and contributing, but when I started to write the script and got to her section, I found myself scratching my head to come up with a solid example of something that she actually did. Her development felt like somewhat of an afterthought this season, going from being indifferent about Penn to denying her feelings to suddenly singing an entire love song about him felt a little sudden. I think this is another symptom of the problem Hazbin has, and I believe it always will have, with putting too much into too little. Again, this is something they choose to do. No one is making them write a romance between Cherry Bomb and Serpentius into the season. They are choosing to do it, despite knowing they don't have room for it. They'd rather it be there and watered down than not there at all. This is a decision I will never agree with, but it's one I've come to accept. Despite my issues with Cherri's story, I didn't hate that she was there either. She is fun to watch on screen, and I loved her song with Serpentius. Just like Nifty's song, it's so unapologetic and absurd. It's Hazbin at peak Hazbin. I mean, look at this. It's got a split screen. It's so stupid I think it added 10 years to my life. I will say, if Cherri learned anything this season, it's to be more open and vulnerable with her emotions, which is required if you join the hotel. So far, the way Cherri has handled emotions, both her own and others, has been through partying and explosives. With her telling Angel to come out and club after he'd been texting her depressing shit all day, and reminiscing that she misses Serpentius, and doubling down saying she only wants to fight him when questioned on that. And we're all fooled. We also got to see a bit more of what her friendship with Angel actually looks like. We got little glimpses of their friendship in the 6th episode of Hazbin Hotel Season 1 and in the Addict music video all the way back in 2019. But both of those were in rather extreme, or at the very least over the top, circumstances. It's nice to see what they're like when they're just casual, just lounging. It seems like Angel and Cherri have a very physically affectionate relationship, and I think that's very sweet, especially when you think about everything that Angel is going through. The fact that he has someone he can trust enough to offer him that kind of comfort is very touching. And there is her budding bond with Husk. She seems to have picked up that Husk has an interest in Angel and is encouraging it. Many people, myself included, joked about Cherri sitting at the bar and angsting over Serpentius while Angel and Husk flirt directly in front of her salads. And maybe we'll get a reverse on this dynamic in Season 3. Cherri reading her letters from Pentius and giggling while Husk sulks behind the counter, though I'm sure she would not let him get away with that. I'm expecting a fun dynamic between the two. But overall, I'm unfortunately pretty disappointed with Cherri in Season 2. I remember being excited when I found out that she'd be a more constant presence in Season 2, but concerned about how they would manage to balance her with everyone else when Hazbin already has such a large cast and so little time. And it looks like they didn't. Overall, her inclusion is fine. It's not wholly necessary, but I can't call it unwelcome. It's nice to see her. It is. She's fun, she's loud, she's great. But I hope she has more to do in Season 3. And that's unfortunately all I have to say. Baxter doesn't do anything. Okay, fine. I'll actually talk about him. But seriously, Baxter's presence this season was entirely superfluous. What word did I just say? Superfluous. Why did I forget how to speak all of a sudden? Superfluous. In season 2, Baxter exists to exposit he and Serpentius' backstory, give fingers and lungs to Niffty's bugs so that they can play instruments, at the very last second, announce that he is a genius computer hacker and can hack into Vox's system so that they can Zoom call Serpentius down to all of hell. But he does not do this because he doesn't push the goddamn button when he has the full ability to push the goddamn button and start the Zoom call because he's too distracted by Niffty kicking Velvet's ass. And then he loses the entire signal because he was too distracted by Niffty kicking Velvet's ass, and once the ass has been kicked out the window, he gets the signal back, but he still does not push the button because his laptop gets angel beam blasted to atoms, and so he does not do anything, and Serpentius just Zoom calls in by himself. Baxter literally does nothing the entire season. But that said, I'm not mad about it. I know I just roasted him pretty hard because yes, Baxter is superfluous, but he doesn't exactly hurt the plot either. I never felt like the plot was sacrificing time, its most precious resource, to focus on Baxter needlessly. He was almost always paired with more relevant characters for his scenes so we could get his characterization in without significantly slowing down the plot, which I do have to applaud them for is pretty clever. So his presence felt like more of a bonus than a hindrance. But truly and honestly, there is not much I can say about Baxter. If you thought I was short on Cherri, Baxter is there. He's there, and he's occasionally funny about it. Baxter, he's there. Sometimes he's cute in the background with Niffty, but mostly he's just there. Maybe next season he'll be even more there. Baxter, he's there! Anyway, that should be everyone. I think we can finally move on to the next sequence. Hang on. Something. Oh, Lucifer! I'm about to make a really specific group of fans really mad. Well, I can't say Lucifer himself had too much character development. He was too busy taking constant L's for that. We, as the audience, got some greater insight on just how the rulership of hell functions and why Lucifer is the way he is. What season 2 has made abundantly clear to me is that from at least the sinner's side of things, Lucifer is not the king so much as Lilith was the queen. Because you see, Lucifer can't harm sinners. As he explains to Vaggi, hell isn't just a place, it's a punishment. And his is he cannot interfere, at least violently, with the sinners. And I love that. While I don't talk about him that much in my shorts, I have always loved Hazbin Hotel's depiction of Lucifer. We have an abundance of the dark, mysterious, anti-hero depictions of Lucifer, and while there's nothing wrong with those depictions on the surface, a deviation from the norm is nice. The goofy, bumbling, kind of pathetic Lucifer of Hazbin Hotel is different and a lot of fun. And it really drives home the idea that Lucifer wasn't evil, necessarily. He was just an angel with his own ideas. Ideas that failed him. We very rarely see hell explored as a genuine punishment for Lucifer. While I do enjoy depictions of hell that are part of Lucifer, an extension of himself, his sole domain, the hell in Hazbin Hotel works differently. Even Lucifer cannot escape being punished, and his punishment is to live amongst his greatest shame, with all the power of an angel that he cannot use on those he hates the most. They put the sin of pride in a cage, barred by his greatest shame. That is such a cool idea, and it makes perfect sense. What I hope is that Lucifer and Lilith both have this punishment, that they both can't harm sinners directly. After all, they committed the same sin. They both gave Eve the apple together. They both let evil into the world. It would make sense for them both to have this punishment, and I so desperately want them to, because it would create a fascinating parallel between them. Lucifer's response to not being able to harm the sinners was to ignore them, to create the Hellborn to populate hell, and mostly let the sinners govern themselves. Lilith's response was to uplift the sinners. There is more than one way you can have power over a people. You can do it through fear and threats, but also through love and praise. And that was Lilith's route. Lilith became a ruler of the people. To them, she was the true queen of hell. But this section isn't about Lilith, and overall she's still a big question mark. Lucifer is the one we have. The one hell has. The one that could have had power over hell and chose not to. That's how broken he is. I've noticed the only character whose name Lucifer even attempts to remember is Vaggi. Every other sinner he either doesn't bother or calls them red guy, TV head. And Vaggi isn't a sinner. I think Lucifer can't stand sinners, not because of what they've done. For the most part, he has no idea what they've done. But I think by just being sinners, he sees himself in every one of them. We can see it when he's talking to Vox. You were a failure in life, and you're a failure now. Vox was anything but a failure in life, and he's not much of a failure now, at least not yet. But that doesn't matter, because Lucifer isn't talking to Vox. He's talking to himself. And he might not even know it. He's been drowning in self-loathing for so long, he might not even feel it anymore. It stopped being an emotion, and now it's just a fact. This is why I think he's been so estranged from Cherri. It's not that he doesn't love her. It's that he doesn't feel like a father, just a failure. If Cherri doesn't want him around, he must deserve it. If Lilith is keeping him away from Cherri, he must deserve it. I think Lucifer's greatest flaw is he hates himself more than he loves anyone. He's living in the hotel in season 2, but he still doesn't really know what Cherri is going through because he spends most of his days locked in his room, away from everyone else. He doesn't ask Cherri how she's doing because he doesn't see how he can help. He doesn't interfere unless it's directly in front of him, and even then, he's not helping Cherri because he wants to redeem the sinners. He hates the sinners, but he just wants to prove himself to Cherri. I've been seeing a lot of rhetoric going around after Hazbin Hotel Season 2 release that Cherri is a bad daughter. But I don't really like this phrase. I'm not a fan of blaming the child for the failings of the parent. The same goes for Octavia in Hell of a Boss. Maybe Cherri wasn't being entirely fair to Lucifer when she scolded him after he tried to help her, at Vaggi's request, not his own idea, but was it fair for Lucifer to ignore her? Was it fair for Lucifer to only call her when he was bored or wanted her to do something? He was sick, he was depressed, he was kept away, yes, but he was still a father. And if he wanted to, he would have found a way. With Lilith's potential return, I want to see how this is addressed. I want to see how Cherri treats her dad now that her preferred parent is back. I want to see how Lucifer allows Cherri to treat him. If he'll slip back into the shadows, or if this time with his daughter will make him realize just how much he loves her and loves being her father, and he won't want to go back to being largely absent. Maybe he'll refuse. Maybe everything that happened in Season 2, combined with Lilith's return, will be the wake-up call he needs to be not just Cherri's father, but the true king of hell. And that was everyone at the hotel. Kind of a downer ending to that section, I know, but luckily there's still plenty of video left. We have the V's to go through, the heaven to go through, all the songs, my analysis of the finale, what I would like to see in the future. There's plenty left to talk about, only, not in this video. I'm going out of town on the 22nd, and I am filming this on, I think it's the 13th. Honestly, time is an illusion. The days have blurred together, and I have finally decided I cannot physically fit everything I need into one video. I have no choice but to break it up into 2 parts. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry for leaving you on this cliffhanger, but I will be back in the new year to analyze every last drawing I didn't script this part. I'm so tired, everyone. I'm so tired. I'll see you in 2026.